Commander Jin was having his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. The bitter liquid had barely touched his lips when every alarm in the deep space monitoring station started screaming at once.
Ow.
Red lights bathed the control room as his team scrambled to their positions. "What's happening?" Jin shouted over the noise. Operator Kim's face went pale as she stared at her screens. "Sir, we're getting a transmission. It's not human. It's 300 years. That's how long Earth had been alone in the dark, cut off from whatever was out there among the stars." The old records spoke of contact, of warnings, of something so terrible that the entire galaxy had decided to quarantine humanity. But that was ancient history. Now Jin was looking at proof that humans weren't alone, far across the galaxy. Ambassador Lixol of the Valonian Empire was making the hardest decision of his life. Elegant blue hands shook as he prepared the emergency broadcast. Behind him, through the command ship's viewing ports, he could see the horror that had driven him to this moment. The Void Swarm was eating everything. What had once been the beautiful colony world of Nexer Prime was now a writhing mass of black. Bioships, they moved like insects, millions of them, stripping the planet bare. First they took the cities, then the forests, then the very atmosphere itself. Nothing remained but empty rock. "My lord," his aide whispered, "surely there must be another way. The Corvin fleet, perhaps. The Zenthari." The Sol's four eyes closed in despair. "The Corvins fell last week. The Zenthari won't even answer our calls." He looked at the forbidden datapad in his hands. There is only one option left. The datapad contained coordinates that were marked with every warning symbol in the galactic database. Sol system. Quarantine level maximum. Deathworld species. Do not contact under any circumstances, but circumstances had changed. The swarm was consuming everything in its path. Soon there would be nothing left to save. Back on Earth, Commander Jin watched the translation software work its magic. The alien language was unlike anything in human databases, all clicks and musical tones. But slowly words began to appear on his screen. "Please," the message read, "our worlds are dying. Swarm devours all. We have nowhere else to turn. No, you are forbidden, but we beg you, help us." Jin felt a chill run down his spine. Forbidden? Why would humans be forbidden? He thought about the old stories, the fragments of history that spoke of Earth's isolation. Had humanity been locked away to protect others, or to protect themselves? The message continued with coordinates, battle reports, images of worlds being consumed by something that looked like a nightmare made real. Billions were dying while something called the Void Swarm spread across the galaxy like a plague. Jin reached for his communication device. This was way above his authority level, but he knew one thing for certain. After 3 centuries of silence, the galaxy was calling for help, and Earth was about to answer. Admiral Kong stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. Watching the alien transmission for the 5th time, the desperation in the ambassador's voice was real, but something else bothered him. These Valonians spoke about humans like they were discussing wild animals. "Deathworld species," he muttered, reading the intercepted galactic database entries. "Primitive, violent, quarantined for good reason." Lieutenant Park entered the command center, her face grim. "Long-range sensors are picking up 3 Valonian vessels approaching the outer system. They're not even trying to hide." Kong almost laughed. After 3 centuries of isolation, aliens were just going to waltz into human space like they owned it. Let's see what our guests think of Earth's welcome committee. The Valonian ships were beautiful in their own way. Sleek, crystalline hulls that caught starlight and turned it into rainbow patterns. Ambassador the Soul stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his blue skin shimmering with nervous energy. "Remember," he told his crew, "these are primitives. They probably still use chemical rockets and metal bullets. We show them our superiority, make them understand the threat. They'll be grateful to serve as cannon fodder against the swarm." "Captain," Veltar nodded from his position, "our shields can handle anything they might throw at us. It's probably rocks, knowing Deathworlders." That's when Earth's defense grid came online. At first, Dexol thought he was seeing sensor ghosts, massive structures. appeared out of nowhere, materializing from what had looked like empty space. Then he realized the truth was worse. They hadn't materialized. They had been there all along, invisible. Captain. His sensor operator's voice cracked. I'm reading energy signatures that ... That can't be right. These readings are off our scales. Calm human voice came through their communication system, speaking perfect Valonian. Unknown vessels, you have entered Terran space without permission. State your business or be destroyed. This Al's four eyes widened. How did they know Valonian? How were they even detecting his ships through military-grade stealth fields? This is Ambassador Thexol of the Valonian Empire, he transmitted back. You come seeking aid against the Void Swarm. We mean no harm to your ... people. Response came with coordinates. Proceed to designated holding area. Any deviation will result in immediate termination. As they followed the flight path, Thexol watched his sensors try to make sense of what they were seeing. The holding area was surrounded by structures that defied physics. Platforms that seemed to exist in folded space. Weapons that bent light around themselves. Energy readings that suggested power sources beyond anything in galactic civilization. My lord, Captain Veltar whispered, these aren't primitives. These are... I don't know what these are. Admiral Kang watched the alien ships from his command center, noting how their advanced shields flickered uselessly against Earth's scanning arrays. 300 years of isolation had given humanity time to think, time to build, time to prepare. For the day when the galaxy might come calling, the aliens had expected to find savages with sticks and stones. Instead, they had found something that made their most advanced technology look like children's toys. Sir Lieutenant Park asked quietly, should we show them more? Kong smiled. Not yet. Let them wonder. The emergency meeting took place 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a bunker that officially didn't exist. Fleet Admiral Ney walked into the war room where Earth's most powerful leaders had gathered. The holographic table showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with red zones spreading like an infection across dozens of star systems. Gentlemen, ladies, Na began, her voice cutting through the tension. The Void Swarm has consumed 47 worlds in the past month. At their current rate, they'll reach the galactic core within 2 years. General Cho leaned forward, studying the tactical display and the alien fleets. Falling back on all fronts, Admiral Kim replied grimly. The Valonians lost their entire 5th Fleet yesterday. The Corvins are in full retreat. Every major galactic power is either dead or running. Defense Minister Lee shook her head. 300 years ago, they locked us away like dangerous animals, called us too violent, too primitive. Now they come begging for help. A touch to control, and the display changed. I was showed the Sol system, but not as the aliens saw it. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, camouflaged as rocks and debris, were massive structures. Shipyards that had been building in secret for centuries. Weapons platforms that could crack planets. Fleets that had never seen sunlight. The Ghost Protocol was designed for this moment, Na said quietly. Our ancestors knew that someday something would threaten all life in the galaxy. They prepared us for that day. Captain Park, the youngest person in the room, spoke up. Sir, are we really ready for this? I mean, we've been isolated for so long. We don't know how our technology compares to what's out there. Na smiled grimly. Lieutenant, show them the test results from last week. A new image appeared, showed Earth's moon, or rather where Earth's moon used to be. In its place was a perfectly spherical void in space. We tested our new reality displacement cannon, Na explained. The moon didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. Our weapons don't just destroy matter. They remove it from the universe entirely. The room fell silent. Na activated her command console. Computer, initiate Ghost Protocol authorization, Omega 77. Voice print confirmed. Initiating Ghost Protocol. Throughout the Sol system, things began to change. What had looked like asteroids for 3 centuries suddenly unfolded like flowers blooming. Massive shipyards revealed themselves, their hulls gleaming with technology that bent light around them. Ships emerged from hidden bays, vessels so large they had their own gravity fields. the Ragnarok. Earth's flagship dreadnought was 12 miles long and carried weapons that could collapse stars. But it wasn't alone. Hundreds of ships just like it powered up for the first time, their engines turning space itself into a weapon. "My God," whispered General Cho, watching the displays. "Many ships do we have?" Na looked around the room. At her fellow commanders, enough to end this war permanently. The galaxy wanted to keep us locked away because they were afraid of what we might become. Now they're about to find out they were right to be afraid. The sleeping giant was finally awake. Ambassador Dexol tried to hide his trembling as Commander Yoon led him through the human command vessel. What he had expected to be a primitive metal tube was something that hurt his mind to look at. The walls seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, shifting and flowing like liquid metal. "Impressive, isn't it?" Commander Yoon said casually. Noticing the ambassador's confusion, "We call it phase shift architecture. The ship exists in normal space and folded space simultaneously, makes us nearly impossible to hit." Stexel's translator was struggling with the concepts. Folded space was theoretical physics that even the most advanced Valonian scientists couldn't achieve. These humans spoke about it like discussing the weather. They passed a viewing port and Dexol stopped dead. Through the transparent material, he could see human technicians working in what looked like open space with no protective suits. They were installing weapons on the ship's hull while space bent around them like water. "How are they breathing?" he gasped. "Personal gravity fields," Yoon explained. "Each tech carries their own atmosphere. Useful when you're working on ships that phase in and out of reality." The tour continued into the weapons bay, where Dexol saw his first gravity cannon. The device was the size of a small building, humming with energy that made his scales itch. A human technician was performing maintenance, casually reaching into what looked like a contained black hole. "Careful with that one, Lee," Yoon called out. "Last time someone misaligned the containment field, we accidentally deleted a small moon." This all's four hearts nearly stopped. They had weapons that could delete celestial bodies. They talked about it like a minor workplace accident. But the real horror came when they reached the observation deck. Through the massive viewing wall, Dexol could see the Sol system spread out before them. And everywhere he looked, asteroids were transforming. What he had thought were simple space rocks were revealing themselves as massive battle stations. Weapons platforms larger than Valonian cities unfolded from their stone disguises. Ships that dwarfed the greatest dreadnoughts in galactic history emerged from hidden bays carved into moons. Beautiful, isn't it? Captain Wang joined them on the deck. 300 years of preparation. We knew someday the galaxy would need us. Dexol watched a construction platform unfold from what he had assumed was just another asteroid. It was building ships in real time, using matter converters to transform space dust into hull armor that his sensors said was denser than neutron star material. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Your species was marked as primitive. Barely past nuclear technology. The Galactic Council said you were dangerous because you were violent, not because you were advanced." Commander Yoon smiled, and for the first time Dexol saw something predatory in that expression. "Ambassador, we were never primitive. We were just patient. The galaxy locked us away to protect themselves from our violence. What we might build while we waited," Dexol realized with growing terror that his people hadn't awakened humanity's military. They had awakened something far worse: humanity's imagination, applied to the art of war. The savages had become gods of destruction. Admiral Kong stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Sol's Fury, watching his fleet prepare for departure. Around him, 1,000 ships powered up their engines, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The bridge crew moved with quiet efficiency, their faces calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. "Fleet status report," Kong ordered. "All vessels ready for departure, sir," Lieutenant Choi announced. The Ragnarok, Busan, Thunder, and Inchen's Wrath are leading the vanguard. Support vessels are forming up behind us. Viewing screens, Kong could see the transformation happening across the Sol system. What had looked like ordinary asteroids and space junk for 3 centuries were now revealing their true nature. Rock shells cracked open like eggs, exposing sleek war machines underneath. Debris fields reorganized themselves into perfect formations of destroyers and cruisers. "It's quite a sight," Captain Park said, joining Kang at the observation deck. "I was 7 years old when my father showed me the hidden fleets. I never imagined I'd be the one to wake them up." The Soul's Fury began moving, and behind it, the largest military force in human history followed. Ships emerged from moon bases, from asteroid hollows, from camouflage stations that had orbited Jupiter for decades. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering built with technology that the galaxy had never imagined possible. Admiral Park continued, "Should we give our alien guests a demonstration? They still seem to think we're primitive." Kong nodded toward a barren moon orbiting Mars. "That one's been scheduled for removal anyway. It was blocking our sensor array." Park smiled and walked to her weapons console. The main cannon of the Soul's Fury began charging, reality bending around its barrel as gravitational forces built up. The alien observers on board watched in fascination, still not understanding what they were about to witness. "Target locked," Park announced. "Firing." The weapon discharged with no sound, no flash of light. Instead, space itself seemed to hiccup. The moon, a chunk of rock 200 miles across, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blown apart. It ceased to exist, leaving only empty space where it had been. Ambassador Vexal's translator finally gave up trying to process what he was seeing in the training decks below. Human Marines were preparing for combat in ways that defied belief. They sparred in gravitational fields that would crush most alien species, their enhanced bodies moving normally under forces that bent steel. Some practiced fighting in folded space, learning to attack enemies who existed in multiple dimensions. At once, Sergeant Min led a squad through combat drills inside a gravity well generator. The Marines moved like dancers, using the crushing forces as weapons, turning physics itself into their ally. "Remember," Min shouted over the roar of compressed space-time, "the enemy evolved in normal gravity. Use that against them. Make the battlefield itself your weapon." Admiral Kang watched his fleet reach full speed, space folding around them as they prepared to jump to Valonian territory. 1,000 ships carrying the hopes of humanity and the fears of the galaxy. The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and it was going to war. The Void Swarm had been feeding on Thyros Prime for 3 days when the human fleet arrived. Captain Cho watched from the bridge of the Ragnarok as millions of bioships swarmed around the dying planet like hungry insects. The once beautiful world was already half consumed, its blue oceans turned black with alien corruption. "Status." "Report," Cho ordered, his voice calm despite the horror unfolding before them. Swarm biofleet numbers. "Approximately 2 million vessels," reported Tactical Officer Kim. "They're preparing for final planetary consumption. Estimated time until complete absorption. 6 hours." On the Valonian command ship Crystal Dawn, Admiral Velkar watched the human fleet emerge from folded space. Only 50 vessels against 2 million. He felt a mixture of gratitude and despair. These brave humans were going to die trying to save his world. "They're too few," he whispered to his aide. "Even with their advanced technology, the numbers are impossible." Ambassador Vexal, still aboard the human command vessel, watched Captain Cho's crew prepare for battle. He expected to see the careful positioning that marked civilized warfare, shield deployments, tactical formations, gradual engagement protocols. Instead, he saw something that chilled him to his core. The humans were preparing to end the battle in a single strike. Captain Weapons Officer Park announced, "The Void Ripper is charged and ready." Cho nodded. "Target the swarm's primary cluster. Full power." The Ragnarok moved forward, its massive hull gleaming with energy. Along its 12-mile length, weapon systems that had never been fired in anger began warming up. But it was the primary weapon that made space itself seem to hold its breath. The Void Ripper wasn't just a weapon. It was an application of human theoretical physics that turned reality into ammunition. Instead of firing energy or matter, it fired the absence of existence itself. "All vessels maintain safe distance," Cho broadcast to his fleet. "This is going to get messy." The weapon discharged. reality tore open like fabric. A crack in the universe itself spread outward from the Ragnarok, consuming everything in its desired path. The swarm bioships didn't explode or burn, they simply stopped being. The tear in space swallowed them completely, erasing not just their matter, but their very existence from the timeline. In 30 seconds, 2 million bioships vanished. The crack sealed itself, leaving only empty space where the largest swarm fleet in history had been. Aboard the Valonian ships, alarms blared as sensors tried to process what they had witnessed. Admiral Velkar stared at his tactical displays, watching readouts that showed impossible results. "Sir," his sensor operator stammered, "the swarm fleet is ... gone, not destroyed. Gone. Our computers can't even find traces that they ever existed." Thixal felt his legs give way. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had edited the enemy out of reality itself. This wasn't warfare as the galaxy understood it. This was the power of gods wielded by creatures who had learned to hunt in the dark between stars. Captain Cho turned to his crew. "Planetary cleanup can commence. Deploy the restoration drones." For humanity, erasing 2 million enemy ships was just the opening move. The city of Vexhari was dying. Smoke rose from collapsed towers while the void swarm's bioweapons crawled through the streets, hunting for survivors. Most of the galaxy's military forces had retreated hours ago, writing off the planet as lost. But the humans were still there, running toward the danger instead of away from it. Medic Jun sprinted through the rubble-filled streets, his medical scanner beeping rapidly as it detected life signs. His armor was scorched from plasma fire, but he ignored the damage. 3 Zalani civilians were trapped under a collapsed transport, their purple blood pooling in the street. "Hold still," Jun said, activating his emergency translator. The injured aliens looked up at him with large, frightened eyes. They had heard the stories about these Deathworld humans, violent, dangerous, unpredictable. They expected him to finish them off. Instead, Jun knelt beside the eldest Zalani, a female whose breathing was labored and weak. His scanner showed internal injuries, but nothing his medical kit couldn't handle. "You should leave us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Save yourselves. We are already dead." Jun shook his head as he prepared an injection of human-made healing compounds. "That's not how we work. Nobody gets left behind." He looked into her alien eyes with the same determination that had carried humanity through 3 centuries of isolation. "My grandmother used to say that strength isn't about how hard you can hit, it's about who you choose to protect." The Zalani watched in amazement as Jun worked. His hands moved with practiced precision, sealing wounds and setting broken bones. When swarm drones appeared at the end of the street, he didn't run. He activated his personal shield generator and kept working, even as plasma bolts exploded around them. Meanwhile, across the city, Engineer Yoon stood before the primary devourer hive. The massive biostructure pulsed with alien life, spawning new creatures every few seconds. Her team had tried everything: orbital bombardment, reality displacement weapons, even gravity bombs. Nothing worked. The hive was too well protected, buried too deep in the planet's core. But Yoon had found a solution. It just required someone to carry the explosives inside. "This is insane," Captain Lee's voice crackled through her cum. "We can find another way." "No time," Yoon replied, checking her equipment one final time. The explosive charges on her back contained enough power to crack a moon in half. "The hive is adapting to our weapons. In another hour, it'll be immune to everything. She stepped toward the writhing entrance of the alien structure. Biosensors tried to stop her, but her modified armor fooled them into thinking she was just another piece of consumed matter. Inside the hive, Yoon moved through corridors that pulsed like blood vessels. The walls tried to digest her, but her suit's defenses held long enough for her to reach the core chamber. Her last transmission echoed across the human fleet. "This is for everyone who can't fight back. See you on the other side." Explosion was visible from orbit. The hive and everything connected to it for 100 miles simply vanished. Back in the streets, Medic June helped the last Solani survivor to her feet. She looked at him with Wonder why? She asked. Jun smiled. Because that's what humans do. The swarm's core stronghold hung in the void, like a twisted nightmare. Billions of bioships surrounded the massive hive mother, a living structure the size of a small moon. For 3 million years, the void swarm had consumed everything in its path. No force in the galaxy had ever threatened their central nest. Commander. Li studied the tactical display from the bridge of the Inchin's Revenge. Around him, his staff plotted attack vectors and calculated weapon trajectories. But Li was thinking differently. He wasn't seeing a fortress to attack. He was seeing prey to hunt. Status report, Li ordered. Swarm defensive formations are holding steady, reported Navigation Officer Kim. They've got 17 million bioships in defensive positions. Every approach vector is covered by overlapping fire zones. Captain Zhang frowned at the display. Even with our reality weapons, those numbers are impossible. We need 100 fleets to break through. He smiled, and his officers recognized that predatory expression. It was the same look their ancestors had worn when hunting mammoth across frozen plains. You're thinking like prey, Li said quietly. The swarm expects us to attack their strength. They've positioned everything to defend against a frontal assault. He touched the tactical display, highlighting a section of empty space. But what if we don't attack their fortress at all? The plan was pure human madness. Instead of engaging the defensive fleet, Li ordered his ships to ignore the stronghold. Completely. They scattered across the system, hunting down isolated swarm scouts and supply vessels. To the aliens watching, it looked like humans had lost their nerve. The swarm reacted exactly as Li had predicted. They were a hive mind, designed for overwhelming force and direct consumption. They didn't understand deception or misdirection. When the humans appeared to retreat, the swarm sent pursuit fleets, spreading their forces across the system. Phase 2, Li announced. This was where human strategic thinking showed its true power. While other species fought battles, humans fought wars. They had studied the swarm for weeks, learning how the hive mother sustained itself. Like all living things, it needed food. Specifically, the processed matter from conquered worlds. Human strike teams hit the biotransport vessels simultaneously, not to destroy them, but to infect them with something the swarm had never encountered, human nanites designed to mimic swarm. Biosignatures while carrying a deadly payload, the infected supplies reached the hive mother before the swarm realized. What was happening? The nanites didn't attack immediately. They waited, spreading through the living structure like a virus, hiding in the bioneural networks that controlled everything. When Li gave the signal, every infected system shut down. At once, the massive creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years suddenly found itself paralyzed. Its own nervous system turned against it, Li ordered. The human fleet closed in like wolves surrounding a wounded elk. But they didn't use their reality-tearing weapons or gravity bombs. Instead, they deployed something far more terrifying, systematic, methodical execution. The galaxy watched as humanity demonstrated why they had been quarantined, not because they were too violent for civilized space, but because once they started hunting, nothing could make them stop. The void swarm died not in glorious battle, but like prey caught by apex predators who had turned warfare into an art form. The war was over in 3 months. 3 months to end a threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Now Fleet Admiral Na sat in what used to be the Galactic Council chambers, watching alien ambassadors line up to sign new treaties with Earth. The irony wasn't lost on her. These same species had voted to quarantine humanity 3 centuries ago, calling them too dangerous for civilized space. Now those same aliens were begging to become Earth's allies. Ambassador Vexel approached the signing table, his blue hands trembling slightly as he held the Valonian trade agreement. The document was fair, even generous by galactic standards. Humanity asked for reasonable tribute, fair trade deals, and mutual defense pacts. Nothing like the brutal conquest most species had expected. Admiral Ney, Vexel said carefully, on behalf of the Valonian Empire, I formally request Earth's protection under the new Terran Defense Compact. Na signed the document with a simple human pen, not the elaborate ceremonial tools that galactic diplomacy usually required. "Welcome to the New Order, Ambassador. Your people will be safe." But the Xal wasn't fooled by the gentle words. He had seen what humans could do when threatened. The Void Swarm had been completely erased from existence, every trace of their 3 million-year reign of terror removed from the galaxy in less than a season. Other ambassadors waited their turn. The proud Corvin Empire, reduced to 3 worlds after the Swarm's assault, offered their remaining fleet to human command. The Zenthari Republic signed over mining rights to 12 systems in exchange for protection. Even the mysterious Phantom Lords, who had never spoken to other species, sent representatives to negotiate with Earth. Captain Kim entered the chamber and whispered something in Na's ear. The Admiral nodded and stood to address the assembled. "Aliens. I have just received word that our deep space monitors have detected another threat approaching from the galactic rim, something our long-range sensors call the Harvester Fleet. Estimated arrival time, 18 months. The chamber fell silent. These species had just escaped extinction from the Void Swarm, and now another existential threat was coming. However, Nay continued, "This time, you won't face it alone. The Terran Defense Fleet will meet this new enemy long before they reach inhabited space." Relief washed over the alien faces. They finally understood what they had gained by awakening humanity. Not just protection, but the security of knowing that Earth's impossible weapons and predatory strategic thinking now stood between them and the dark. Ambassador Thexal looked around the chamber at his fellow diplomats. They had all come to the same realization. The galaxy had traded one type of fear for another, but this new fear came with benefits, trade, technology, and the promise that nothing would ever threaten them again. The quarantine was over. Humanity was no longer isolated on the edge of space. They were now the center of a new galactic civilization, one built on the simple promise that Earth would protect those who accepted human leadership. The sleeping giant was awake. It was reshaping the universe.